friends, I'm Emma and I'm a huge book nerd. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Today we are going through my February wrap-up and talking about all of the great books that I read in February. So let's jump in. I read 9 books in February, which is really solid. I'm feeling really good about it. The first book that I read in February is If Beale Street Could Talk by James Baldwin, and this was quite the way to start off the month. This book follows a 19-year-old girl named Tish and her fiance Fani, who they're deeply in love, and she's pregnant with his child, and he is falsely accused of a crime and he's in prison, and she spends the novel trying to get him out. And it's just this incredible love story, and the writing, oh my goodness, the writing is just like, I don't have the words to describe how incredible the writing in here is. And this is the very first Baldwin that I've ever read, and now I'm like, I need to read all the Baldwin. So yeah, if you haven't read this, or you haven't read Baldwin, then please add this to your TBR. And I haven't seen the movie, so let me know if I should see the movie. 4.5 stars. Incredible. The next book that I read in February is Lizzys Story by Stephen King. I wanted to read this while it was still winter time because this looked so, cold and wintry, and I wanted to, cozy up during winter storm. And I read this at the perfect time because Chicago was having a polar vortex and several blizzards consecutively. So this was the perfect book to read. And I loved this. I was not expecting to like it as much as I did because I never hear anything about this particular Stephen King book. It's about Lizzie Landon, whose husband has recently died, and she has sort of hidden away some memories from their time together behind something she calls the purple curtain. But Scott, her husband, leaves behind a scavenger hunt. In the book they call it a Beale, that takes her behind the curtain, and so she has to unearth those memories and uncover these really dark parts of Scott's past. And you can tell that it's written by a man, definitely. Stephen King is often problematic, and I completely recognize that, but there's just something about his writing that's I just want to keep reading it always. It's so immersive. I feel like I'm watching a movie every time I read one of his books, and this was no exception. I thought it was great, and I actually liked the ending of this book, which is rare for Stephen King books. So yeah, 4 stars. I thought it was pretty great. Then I read Bad Feminist by Roxane Gay. This is a collection of essays about feminism, about all of its flaws and about all of her personal flaws as a feminist, and how even, despite the fact that feminism and feminists are imperfect, that doesn't mean that feminism isn't something that we should, fight for. So this is incredible. No surprise there. Roxane Gay just continuously blows my mind. She's an incredible writer, and she always challenges me, and then at the same time, I don't know if reaffirms the right word, but I'll read something of hers and I'll be like, yes, I feel that way too, and I'm too scared to say it, and she says it, and it's great. So I love it. I love her. What did I rate this? I gave this 4 stars. Next, I read My Sister the Serial Killer by Oinkam Braithwaite, and I can finally pronounce her name because I listened to the audiobook. But this was amazing. This takes place in Lagos, Nigeria. It follows a woman whose younger sister is just this beautiful, beautiful woman, and she attracts a lot of men, but the men that she dates keep dying. And our main character, at the beginning of the novel, kind of discovers or realizes that her sister is murdering these men and that her sister is a serial killer. And the tone was very different from what I expected. I was expecting kind of your classic thriller where, I don't quite know how to describe this, but I hope that you're gonna understand what I'm saying. It's that in a typical thriller that fits really nicely into that thriller box, takes place in a world in which the only thing that's happening, or the only thing that we see, is this terrifying experience. It's very like zoned in on the people that are going through this. A lot of times, you know, it's like the domestic thrillers that everything takes place in the household and it feels very boxed in, or like, you know, on an island somewhere, or like they all just feel very contained. And this was really interesting because in a way it felt more like contemporary fiction, because we were just following this woman through her life, and her sister is a serial killer, but it didn't feel boxed in. It felt like this was part of the whole world, which made it harder, because then there were real world consequences that we could see on the horizon. I hope that makes sense. I hope that you understand what I mean by that. This was really good, and I think just a really interesting, complicated story about sisterhood and loyalty. Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of all I have to say about it. I ended up giving it 4 stars. A lot of 4 stars this month. I don't know why these didn't. I think I'm getting really picky about my 5-star ratings. I think that's why. I think past Emma would have rated some of these 5 stars, but current Emma is like, the 5-star book has to be that like perfect book that hits me in the perfect point in my life, you know? I don't know. Anyways, wait a minute. I say that and I think I actually gave this next book 5 stars. I did. That's funny. Next I read Apollo 13 by Jim Lovell and Jeffrey Kluger, and this is a nonfiction account of the Apollo 13 mission. I don't even know how to defend my 5-star rating of this after I just said that I'm getting really picky about 5 stars. But I loved this. If you want to hear more details, more thoughts on how I felt about this, keep your eye open for my next vlog, because you're gonna get details in there. So then next I read Normal People by Sally Rooney. I know I finally got around to this, and I really went into this expecting to hate it because I've heard such polarizing reviews about it, but I really liked it, kind of against my will. Like it feels like the cooler option to like be like, ooh, this book is so overrated, but I liked it. I didn't give it 5 stars. I didn't think it was perfect, but I couldn't help. But I think there's something about just like pretentious 20-something-year-olds in university that I just like, I'm interested by it. I like it. I don't know why, but I do. So if you don't know what this book is about, which it's been going around everywhere, so you likely will, but it's about Marianne and Connell, who have been friends since they were kids, and they've been kind of off again, on again their entire lives, and it just follows them through that turbulent relationship. And I ended up giving it 4 stars. Next, I read Evening News by Marley Swick. This is another book in my vlog, so I'm not going to talk too much about my thoughts and feelings on this, but I'll give you a quick synopsis. This book is about a family recovering from a horrible tragedy where the 9-year-old son accidentally shot and killed his toddler sister. It's incredibly depressing, and that's all I'm going to say about this. For more details, head over to my blog. It's a pretty good blog, I promise. You're gonna like it. And then my play of the month was Shining City by Connor McPherson. I have read a Connor McPherson before. I read The Weir, which is really interesting. I really like The Weir. This was also really interesting. I think I really enjoy that his plays don't have a ton of scenes in them. Rather, they jump through time a lot, which I really like. I think it's 2 months pass between each scene in this book. And so we see the characters changing over that period of time. And it's just like snapshots of their life, which is cool. This play is about a therapist who is therapizing this man whose wife recently died, and he thinks that her ghost is haunting him. But it's really more about the therapist, I think, than it is about the man whose wife died, which is interesting because the minute I heard this was about a therapist, I was like, it's just really hard to write plays with therapists in them because therapists are there to listen, which is not interesting to have on stage. But because it was kind of about the therapist, I think it worked. I think I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads, but now I'm considering changing that rating to 4 stars because there's something that I really liked about it. And then finally, the last book that I read, or read part of, in February is Black Ass by A. Igoni Barrett. This book is a satire and a retelling of Metamorphosis, whose author I can't remember, but that's the really famous book about the guy who turns into a dragonfly or bug of some kind. I haven't read it, clearly. And I think that's one of the reasons that this book didn't work for me. And I first want to preface this by saying I watched a bunch of Own Voices reviews, and I still definitely think that this book is worth reading, and I definitely don't want to discourage any of you from reading it. I just have a hard time with satire to begin with. This is the second book that I read this month that took place in Lagos, and I'm also listening to an audiobook that I won't finish until next month, so you'll hear about that later. But that book also takes place in Lagos, and I'm like, why am I reading so many books that take place in Lagos right now? Like, crazy. But anyways, point is, I watched and read some Own Voices reviews by Nigerian readers. This book is very loved, and especially by the Nigerian reviewers that I watched. One in particular said that it was incredibly descriptive and really feels like Lagos, which is really cool. So I think that there are just a lot of like cultural references and a lot of the satire that just is going over my head. And this is the second time that I've tried reading this. The first time I tried reading it, I think I had a similar experience because I read the first few pages and I'm like, this is incredible. And then the deeper I get into it, then it gets a little more like into the working life. Like the guy like starts working in marketing, and I'm like, it just bogs down for me, and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't get through this one. It's just not my cup of tea. But I think there are a lot of people out here who are really gonna like this. I haven't given a synopsis yet. The synopsis is wild, you guys. Hold on to your hats. So this guy, he's a Nigerian man living in Lagos, and one morning he wakes up and discovers that his skin has changed color and he is now a white man. All except for his ass. He still has a black ass, which is hence the title. And no matter what he does, he can't change the color of his ass. So he's a white man with black ass. And it basically just goes through how that changes his life in Lagos. If that sounds interesting to you, then I totally think you should check this out. It's not a bad book at all. It's just not my cup of tea. So yeah. There we go. And those are all of the books that I read in February. I hope there's something on this list that piques your fancy. And if you read any of these, let me know what you thought. Otherwise, please like and subscribe and leave some comments down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye! Mwah.